All right, I think we're live. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, I'm so excited to host Myra Huang with us this afternoon. Um, oh wait, now what's happening here? Okay, this is, what's interesting? I think they must have done some sort of update to their software, and when I went live today, it looked different than it's ever looked before,
Oh,
which is
interesting.
kind of crazy. But yeah, Myra Huang is with us, amazing collaborative pianist on faculty of the within the Opera Theater Department at Manhattan School of Music, vocal coach for the Lindemann program at the Metropolitan Opera, on staff at Ravinia Festival, two-time Grammy nominee, amazing mom, just all around wonderful person. I think anyone who has ever met you could agree with me on that.
Wait.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Weston. It's so good
Yeah,
to connect with you.
I'm going to share this to a couple pages, and if you
I
would
just
like
shared it
to,
to mine, so.
oh, great, great. Yeah, we should try to get some people on here watching for a little bit. Um, how have you been throughout this pandemic? I know that everybody has sort of, been in various stages of um, struggling to create content online and doing different things. Have y'all been operating in person or online? What's been going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, when the pandemic first hit, I was doing a lot of, virtual record from home, a lot of karaoke with some dear friends and colleagues.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we started a Coffee and a Song with my dear friends Larry Brownlee and
Who?
John. He's
That guy? All right,
not
fine,
well
whatever.
known,
Yeah.
Susanna Phillips, and
Who?
so we were, I think that for all of us, it was healing for us to try to just keep doing something.
That's why I started this show. I was like, I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but it was, I was thinking to myself, it's like, what can I do? Like, this is so crazy with all of our work getting taken away from us. And we so intimately sort of define ourselves as performers and as artists. And when all of that gets taken away, you're like,
It's
I mean, yes, of course, I'm a dad and you're a mom, but I mean, how weird is it to spend so much time at home with our people who we actually get to see? It's
right.
kind of amazing how that has given so many people an opportunity to reconnect in ways that, I mean, that's obviously the super huge positive side of all this. But, I thought initially when you're doing a gig and you hear somebody and you're like, wow, I've always been such a fan of your singing, and you just sound great. That's kind of the extent of the conversation. And I thought, how cool would it be to have the opportunity to be like, what is your opinion about the aval through the passaggio, like getting a little bit more under the hood, right, and finding out people's opinions and approaches to music, and then of course lifting the veil and sort of realizing that we're all humans, and for young singers, students, that might really benefit from, well, of course, you mentioned Larry. He was on our show a little bit earlier in the season, last season, and he mentioned that the first time he ever did a public performance, he got a standing ovation. And I was like, oh, okay, so great, that's great. But I think that for many of us had I mean, it was a great chat, don't get me wrong, I love Larry. But, talking with Christine Gurke and talking to some of the other people who, so many students and younger singers see them as just these like superstars singing it all the way, to understand that they struggled and they had challenges and continue to with technique, going through different repertoire. And so, that's been really, really fascinating for me as a colleague, but also as a voice teacher, to hear, the variety of opinions and approaches with those pitfalls and challenges that we all kind of go through with vocal technique as we're learning to sing, of course, and then, like I said, you get into bigger repertoire, or you find yourself in a, oh, I don't know, whatever situation you might be in where it's like, whew, that was tricky. How do I fix this?
Mhm.
Well, then, I felt like, how cool would it be to talk with the people who we are constantly relying upon and sharing music with? Our friend, the collaborative pianist. And then of course, sometimes, what is your opinion on that word? Let's start there. What's your opinion on collaborative pianist?
I don't mind it. It's better than accompanist, you know. I don't
Right.
like the word accompanist.
Well, and both are better than the word app accompanist, which is what we've all had to kind of use.
Oh, that. Oh, right, right, right.
I mean, look,
I am grateful for that app, you know. But
it has definitely helped a lot of us with teaching on Zoom and so forth with our students. Yeah, it's a little karaoke in a box, but yeah, yeah. So you prefer collaborative pianist more than accompanist?
I mean, my favorite word is pianist.
Pianist, of
Myra
course.
Huang, pianist, because the instrument that I play is the piano. It's not the accompagno. You know.
That's a great word.
You know what I mean? And then if you have like chamber music, you know, none of the other instruments are called collaborative instruments. You don't hear collaborative clarinetist or collaborative violinist. You know, you're just
Very true.
all by your
Very true.
instrument. And you know, when I was actually this year when I was nominated for the Grammy with Nick Pan, um, you know, in the listings, it my title was accompanist, and I don't know why I didn't notice that 3 years ago in our first nomination, but this year
Mhm.
it really bothered me, you know?
Hmm.
And I was like out for a walk with my husband and he was like, "Why do they call you accompanist?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then the next morning I woke up and I was like, "I think I'll write a letter, you know, to the Recording Academy."
Good for you. Oh,
Yes, and
did you
I
post that?
I did. I
Yeah, I
posted.
saw that. I saw that. Yeah,
Yeah,
good
I
for you. That was
posted,
awesome.
and so many pianists came out of the woodwork and just voiced their frustration with the word accompanist, you know, and how they're often treated. That, you know, so often when we are giving concerts, you know, you'll see on the website that the pianist isn't even listed. You know, it's a very common occurrence for me that I have to reach out to either the manager or the presenter, say, "Hi, can you please put my name, you know, on the website?"
Right, right.
And
Well,
so,
right.
well, the great news is that they heard my petition. I had to submit a proposal and go through an official process for all of that. But they passed it. So starting this year, we will be called pianists.
That's awesome. See,
Yay! One
sometimes
small
a
change,
letter changes something for the better.
you
That's
know.
great.
It's meaningful. I'm glad. And they even changed it from my certificate that they sent. You know, it says pianist.
Oh,
So
good. That's
but
great.
yeah, it's nice. So
That is great. Well,
one small step for pianists everywhere.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I had kind of gotten us a little bit off on a different track, but you were saying the coffee with friends, is that what you called it?
Oh, coffee and a song, right?
Coffee and a
So,
song, right, right.
right, we were doing that online. And then the murder of George Floyd happened, and really the tone and the, you know, the times really changed, and
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
on that, as you know, and it was a really profound and powerful time for all of us. So that actually started to inform some of the stuff that we were sharing online. But one of the biggest blessings for me has been I started a new position at the Manhattan School of Music this
Yeah.
past fall, just faculty in the opera theater department.
Right?
And MSM has been fantastic because they went above and beyond to make things happen in person. You know, everyone had to keep their masks on. We couldn't stay in one room for more than 30 minutes, and then the room had to air out for an hour.
Right.
So every 25 minutes, we were switching rooms, and it was crazy because first of all, the semester started delayed because of all the
Right.
stuff. And then our goal was to present our scenes program by early December. And I was doing the courtroom scene from The Crucible, has like 15 singers in it with 15 covers, you know.
Yeah.
And we were just in survival mode, you know. We were like, we have to learn this music, get it together. But it was really exciting because everybody knew um, what a privilege it was that we were even doing this in person and that we could perform at all.
Yeah.
And so the students just brought like 200%, everyone,
Wow.
you know, and
Yeah,
that's,
I've seen that too. You know, it's like everyone's so happy, or well, happy is the right word, but just excited to be able to not just sit in a room and do nothing, right? It's like the opportunity to actually create. And so they really have dug in a way that's like, okay, I hope you guys are even, take it here and then go up to the next level when we're actually,
absolutely.
as we move forward.
Yeah. It really bonded us, you know. I think
Yeah,
when people struggle together, they bond.
right, right.
So it's been such a gift for me through
Yeah,
the pandemic. It kept me busy, helped me to not get depressed, you know. Um,
sure.
and thankfully, a lot of organizations where, you know, we were supposed to have a live recital, they pivoted over to recording. And so I've done a good number of those through the season with dear colleagues. And that has been also a gift, you know, to even still get to travel
Yeah.
and it takes so much work, so much preparation of the organizations to and money, you know, the whole video crew, man, and the rental space and all of that. It's just so much more money.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I think a lot of schools who have been doing that have had to rethink their whole approach, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I know that Rice University did a whole, I think they did Kaiser von Atlantis, I think, in the
Mhm,
fall, or
mhm.
with a green screen and doing
Oh,
all the
right.
video
Yes.
stuff, which was cool. And like you're saying, are y'all presenting something at Manhattan School that's being video like recorded and then played, or is it live, or how?
So last semester we actually did some of it live. My scene, The Crucible, because it was so huge, we had to do it in a different location to have enough airing space for
Right,
COVID.
those larger.
Yeah, so my scene was pre-recorded, but everything else was done live.
And
But
then
they
they do
found
live,
that
do they
they
do
found
live
it to be a
stream?
little bit crazy. It was live streamed.
Yep.
So this semester we decided to pre-record all the scenes, and it's actually being aired tonight at 7:30.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it, to see the final, you know, presentations.
Right. I have kind of stepped in as opera director at UMKC, teaching the undergraduate opera scenes class this semester, and we are doing all of ours via Zoom. And we have taken, we're focusing on the Mozart da Ponte operas, Le Nozze di Figaro, Così fan tutte, and Don Giovanni. And we're doing sung recitatives with a pianist over Zoom. And then we are doing sung arias using pre-recorded tracks from our wonderful vocal coach. And then we're doing, instead of sung duets, we're going to transfer those into spoken dialogue. And so it gives the opportunity to still really be able to connect as characters in these scenes. And then the spoken dialogue stuff has actually been really cool, especially with undergraduate students. I am so proud of what the work that they're doing. So often I hear, oh, well, undergraduates, they shouldn't be, they can't do. And I'm like,
Hmm.
yes, they can. Like if you only expect this, yeah, you're not going to get, but if you set the bar here, they will come up to meet it, and it's been so rewarding for me. And I told them on Thursday during our final dress, I was like, I am so proud of, I almost cried. I was like, I cannot tell you how proud I am of each and every one of you. They're all doing so great. So,
That is so creative. I love that idea of turning the
well,
arias.
yeah, I mean, it actually works. It
I
works
think you
really
weren't
well.
doing Handel, right? Because then you'd have like you'd have like 5 words per aria, and then like
That
very
would not be Can you imagine?
You
They
hear
just repeat the
everything.
same words over and over. Well, getting kind of back to what I was saying before, I had started doing this show with singers, but I really was interested in hearing from pianists and hearing your personal story and your journey, which I want to know all about, how you got into music initially, and when you started playing the piano, and how that was that something that was a choice of your own. I know that my mom made me join choir, so I didn't really have a choice in my introduction to music. But then also, I would love to hear a little bit about, as a pianist, what were and continue to be, or new things challenge you technically, from your perspective. And then obviously, I'd love to get into how you work with singers, and how you approach helping us with the different challenges and struggles with technique stuff that we live with. So but getting back to you and your playing, how did you initially get into music, and yeah, tell us a little bit about that story.
Sure. I grew up in Portland, Oregon,
Oh,
and
you did?
I did. I did.
I
I was
didn't know
born
that.
in LA, but then we moved right away to Portland, Oregon. And my older brother is a year and a half older than I am, and he is a cellist. And my parents started both of us very young. I was 4, and he was almost 6. And they pushed us really hard. It was evident right away that we were talented. So I remember being in a group Yamaha class. We had like these little mini electric keyboards,
Mm-hmm.
like hot cross buns. Um, but then very quickly, I had to stay after that class to have my own private lesson with the
Mm-hmm.
teacher. Um, and so, yeah, my whole childhood was about piano. We were performing live very often. My brother and I grew up playing cello
Mm-hmm.
repertoire. I know all the cello repertoire. Um, and so then they thought, well, let's get serious, and let's apply for Juilliard pre-college. So we moved to New York when I was 11, and I attended Juilliard pre-college for 7 years, and then went to Juilliard undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
Funny though, because once I hit high school, I went to math and science high school here in New York, and everyone else was like Harvard, Yale bound, like I want to be an engineer, doctor, all this stuff. And I was like the only one who was sort of like,
I don't.
why did I come here? um, got to Juilliard, did my undergrad in piano there. Um, I did really well. Like, I got A's on my juries and stuff. I studied with Martin Cannon, who's a dear, who was my dear teacher who has passed now.
Mm.
Um, but come, junior year, I was starting to think about the future, and I've always been pretty practical. So I thought, well, I'm not famous. I am not like having this solo career. What do I want to do? And I was looking at the trajectory, and I was like, I don't really want to get a master's and then a doctoral or gajillion degrees, and go into teaching. And that was when I met Kelly Kuo,
I know
who
him.
was at that time studying with Warren Jones at the Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was talking about Warren, and I was intrigued. And I was just starting to do these community outreach services with Sarah Wolfson. I don't know if you know Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
But, one day we came back from one of those, and we were just walking back into the school, and Sarah turns to me and goes, you know, you might consider doing this, because you're good at it. And I was like, maybe. So then when I heard about Warren through Kelly, I was like, okay, let me go check him out. He was playing at Carnegie Hall with Sam Raimi that year. So I went to the concert, and I was just blown away. I mean, I had never been so inspired.
Wow.
And like Sam Raimi, right? Sam Raimi, like, come on.
The first opera I ever saw was Boito Mephistopheles
Oh,
At Houston Grand Opera with him singing the title role.
yeah.
And then later in my career, I got to sing with him. We did L'amore dei tre re, the Italo Montemezzi, and I
Uh-huh.
was Manfredo and he was my dad. And I was just like, you were the first singer I ever saw. You're amazing. I felt like such a nerd. You know, I was like, it was crazy.
I know. I mean, once I started working, I played Billy Budd at Washington National Opera, and he was Claggart, and I had to give him a note, and I was like, "Thanks, Richard Hickox." He like sent me to the dressing room with the note, and I
Yeah.
was like,
You're like, knock, knock, knock. Sam, Mr. Ramey.
like you're singing the wrong note here, But he was such a gentleman, of course, but I'm sure
Oh, sure, of course. Yeah.
whatever. But anyway, I was I was so inspired by Warren. I had not even ever been that moved by a solo pianist um, up to that point, and I thought,
Wow.
you know, I don't know about the whole opera thing, but I just know that if I study with him, I'll become a better musician.
Sure.
So I applied. I actually did also apply to Juilliard for collaborative piano. Was accepted to both, but I was really drawn to Warren, so I went to Manhattan School. Did my master's there. I was like it's a big transition for solo pianists to go into the opera world because there's the element of the text and the theater and the drama that you have never had to deal with before. And I will say that it took me years to really grasp the importance, of the text.
Mm-hmm.
I faked my audition in terms of they make you sing and play in collaborative auditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I did Devieni. And I don't know, I didn't know any lick of Italian, but Sarah coached me on that as well. So I just pretended and learned it.
Right.
And so then right after that, I went straight away to HGO Studio for 2 years. I got married in between the 2 years. And then right after HGO, I started working. I was working at Washington National Opera. Back then, it was just Washington Opera
Right.
and New York City Opera,
Yeah.
uh, both at the same time. And then the second year, John Beeson, who was my boss, head of music at New York City Opera,
Yep.
kind of pulled the staff aside because City Opera was having troubles. And to this day, I so respect him for what he told us because he said, I want you all to know that City Opera is not doing well. And so if you have the opportunity to find other work, I encourage you to consider it.
Oh, wow.
And so that was around the time
I was
when,
just going to say, what year was that?
so that was 2005.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
2000.
didn't even make my debut there until 2006.
Yeah, I think that's maybe where we met, Weston.
Were you on Die Todesstadt? You didn't play Die
I
Todesstadt,
was
did you?
on Die Todesstadt. That was
That's exactly where we met. Oh my God. I was like, did we meet at Juilliard or did we meet at, yeah, okay.
Was that
That's
2006 though? I want to say that was five. Was that 2006?
I think it was
It
2000.
might have been, yeah. I think
I
you're
think
right.
it was 2006.
Okay, so I finished there in 2006, and then in the fall of 2006, I moved to Spain, to Valencia, Spain,
Okay.
to work on music staff at the Palau de les Arts.
Mm.
It was brand new, just opening. Lauren Mazel was the artistic director. The EU poured all this money into the City of Arts and Sciences and this opera house. So we had like,
What a
all
gorgeous house.
A-list singers. Yeah, it looks like a spaceship, you know. That was where I did the Ring Cycle with Zubin Mehta. We did the Fura del Spouse production, which is the one
Mm.
that they did in Houston. Um, so we premiered it in Valencia. Um, just an amazing production. Like
Wow.
in Rheingold, the Rhine Maiden, they are in
Mhm.
their individual glass swimming pools,
Oh, right,
like
right, right,
elevated in the air, you know?
right.
And I remember rehearsing. I can't remember where we rehearsed, but we were rehearsing in some kind of like spa room where they pushed like an upright piano in there because they didn't want the singers to get sick because they were all wet.
Right.
And I just remember playing rehearsals in this steamy sauna room. And I was like, oh, this is a new experience.
Yeah, right. That might not happen again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting. Well,
yeah,
wait, let's go back in time a little bit. So when
okay.
you were in pre-college and even undergraduate at Juilliard, did you have some technical hurdles that you were trying to figure out, or what? Like I was just about to mention JJ Penna. He just commented, "I'm loving listening to both of you, two dear friends and colleagues.
Yay!
Love him."
Love JJ.
He was saying that one of the things that he struggled with and still does is playing fast notes. Like he hates playing. He even like one of the things that we did together. Our first collaboration, I think, was the Marilyn Horn Foundation recital that we did, and it was a crazy program. But we encored with Largo al Factotum, and he mentioned that he was like, I don't like playing that. But
Just
what?
notes out. That's
Yeah,
all.
right. Yeah, just fake it. Just make it. Um, so what were some of the challenges that you had?
Yeah,
Or-
it's interesting that you asked that question because I did actually have some problems in my junior year at Juilliard. I was being over ambitious and I was like, I'm going to become, you know, superhuman technician, whatever. So I found
right?
these exercises by Gina Bachauer in the library. And I was like, I'm going to do these exercises. And they were like thirds, exercises doing
Hmm.
thirds and all kinds of intervals and stuff. And I pushed it too hard and I strained myself.
Ooh,
Yeah, and I
like
strained
like
myself.
tendon or
Kind of. I was never officially diagnosed with anything, but I knew that I had pain
yeah.
in my muscles. And so at the time, I mean, she's still at Juilliard. Her name is Veda Kaplinski, and she runs the Juilliard Pre-College, and she may be the chair of the piano department at Juilliard now. But she was teaching the Taubman technique, which is a technique that's based on very circular motions, much more ergonomic, than staying stiff and in a fixed position.
Hmm.
So I really wanted to take a lesson with her. But this was Juilliard, and students don't take lessons from other teachers.
Than the teacher you have, right?
In fact, it's not just Juilliard. I mean, I don't know any school where that's really okay. Um,
Right.
and I didn't want to go behind her back either, or go behind Mr. Cannon's back.
Right, right, right.
So I actually talked to Mr. Cannon and I said, I'm having these problems. You know, it would mean so much to me if you would come with me to my lesson. And he couldn't say no. And so I brought him into Veda Kaplinski's studio, um, and I had a lesson with her, and he watched. And I think that was probably the first time that ever happened in the history of Juilliard, I'm guessing.
Maybe
Um,
so.
yeah, but it meant a lot to me that he would support me like that. And
It was interesting. It reminds me of a moment when I was at graduate school at Indiana University. Um, the year after I started, Timothy Noble came on faculty at IU, and I was studying with James McDonald. And I remember when he mentioned to me, he said, "Listen, Timothy Noble has had a huge career singing the rep that you're singing. If you ever want to have a coaching with him or work with him, I think you should. I think that would be great." And I was like, "Really?" Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't know that I could do that.
That's
But
awesome.
it was so meaningful because I mean, I remember, and unfortunately, Dr. McDonald has passed away. But he was an academic, mostly teacher. He had sung uh, quite a bit of art song in the UK. It was with a Pairs school and some other things, but very little opera. But he certainly was a great voice teacher. So he was encouraging me, that he knew that I was going into opera and that with the same rep with Tim Noble. And so when I sang for him, he was like, "Oh yeah, have you thought about this Ari? This is another great art." So he was so full of ideas with rep, as well as some technical ideas. And then I remember mentioning he was like, "So where are you in your career? Like, what's coming up next? What are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." I said, I recently won uh, the Dallas Opera Guild competition, but I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. Like, how do I maybe connect with Dallas Opera because I was the winner like 2 or 3 years ago. He goes, "Well, you tell me," and I call my friend Jonathan Pell at Dallas Opera, and I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Hold on a second." He picked up
Oh,
the
that's
phone and called Jonathan
amazing.
Pell, and he goes, "Yeah, I have Weston Hurt in front of me right now, and I think he's sounding great, and I think you need to hear him in audition." And he goes, "Okay." And so next thing I knew, I flew down to Dallas and did an audition, and then they cast me. I made my debut as Schoenart and Bohem there. I was just like,
That's so great.
"Wow, thank you," you know. And so that's one of the things that I mean, just the other day, we're currently doing a search for our new opera director at UMKC, where I'm on faculty now at conservatory. And one of the students of a dear friend and colleague of mine, Maria Kanyova, he got up and sang Ford's monologue from Falstaff. And I was like, wow, yeah, okay, great. He's a young baritone singing this stuff. And I, of course, talked with her about it and said, "Hey, would it be okay if I offered him a coaching? This is a role I've sung a lot." And she was like, "Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Yeah." And so I mentioned it to him, and we're going to see each other. So that's in my mind it's, I know what you mean. It's like studios tend to be so like, this is who you study with. You do not study with that person.
Very territorial, you know?
But at the same time, and I understand, technical approaches are different and so forth. But like, I see it as like the voice program at UMKC Conservatory. These are our students, and we want them to all succeed. Like I don't want to. I mean, I've been in situations where there are literal like wars between studios. It's like I don't want to have that type of dynamic. I want to be supportive, and if I can help someone who is not even in my studio, but like we sing the same. I don't know. I think that that's really helpful. I mean, I imagine that your time spent with her and having your current teacher there I mean, that helped, right? I mean, that was not a
Right.
horrible thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it helped me to just become aware of, keeping certain things flexible. I mean, it's funny because Mr. Cannon, after that lesson would say to me, "It's so funny, that you're having problems because when I watch you play, you're such a fluid player.
Hmm.
You look very natural." So I really think it was that stupid exercise debacle where I just foolishly, forced something on
Your
myself,
superhuman, yeah,
and that was
fingers
just
didn't
an
didn't want
idiot.
to cooperate.
Yeah, I didn't know my limits. So, thankfully, the issues didn't persist. But I guess, to answer your question, when I had that issue, I sought help, right?
Yeah,
That's what I did. I sought help outside of even my own circle. And I'm really glad for it, just to even, I think, have opened the minds of the teachers even about that sort of collaboration. So,
right, right.
yeah, it's interesting what we consider our limitations, what they can actually produce or lead us into, you know?
True.
Um,
Yeah.
So
So now, as you, I mean, you play a variety of repertoire. I mean, do you still have, I don't know, things that you have to practice more than others, challenges,
yeah.
what are some of those things that you continue to work on to this day?
So something that I'm always working on is my sound. Um, you know, singers are like always working on sound
Of
production.
course.
It's easy for pianists not to, um, because you have a sound. Like you press the keys and you make a sound.
Right.
Um, Everybody is born with a certain physiological set of whatever, whether it's your vocal cords or your hands, and your arms. Um, and my hands are long and skinny. You know, it's interesting because when I was little, I had very thick, stubby, strong hands,
Mm.
and it just changed as I got older. Um, Stupid society, like saying that women have to be skinny all the time. I was always like on a diet, and I was really chunky as a kid. And so I was always trying to be skinny. And anyway, now so grass is always greener on the other side, right? So
Of course.
I'm really good at fast. I'm really good at fast and crystalline, flexible.
Well, it's, and ever since we just said that, like, of course, we met on Die Todesstadt. That score is insane.
It
And
is.
I remember now, I remember down in the basement in one of those little rooms, and I remember like I kept, who is this pianist? Like, who is this? She is in an entire, like, three orchestras in one. It's unreal how well you played that score. Like, I remember that now. It's
Thank
funny. It's like my brain sometimes works like a movie. And then as soon as I'm, the movie
Right,
with
right.
Myra playing the piano in Die Todesstadt at City Opera, right? And then it's like it all comes flooding back to me. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, you can play very, very fast.
Oh, thanks. That's one of the hardest scores I played. That
I
between
mean,
and
what's
probably
harder?
Siegfried probably in the
Yeah.
ring is one of the hardest. And then after that maybe
Wow.
Billy Budd, I'd say. But anyway,
Hmm.
so the thing that I'm always envying is my colleagues with thicker hands and wider reach, of course.
Interesting.
Because, when you play something like Brahms, the sound that you want is this padded, gorgeous, warm
Wait,
sound.
I want to make sure we get this. I apologize if it's my internet. I know, no, we're, I just had a thing pop up. Your internet connection is unstable. So I
Oh,
apologize if it's freezing or anything. We missed that. You said you really are envious of your colleagues with thicker hands.
it's big, thick hands,
Right.
because when you play something like Brahms, you know, or what else? Even French music, you're just going for a really warm sound. And my hands being very, I have very flexible hands, so I can get around the keyboard very well. Um, but I've had to learn really how to engage with the weight of my body and the connection with my body to make that kind of warmth in my sound. And that's something I'm constantly thinking about and working on. There's that, and then there's legato, which I'm obsessed about.
Me too.
Not only for singers. you know, uh, Recently I've kind of come back to it and just being reminded that it does make a difference if you connect your fingers, in the line.
Sure.
Because we have this sustain pedal, you can create the feeling of a hand.
Illusion. Right.
But what happens for me is that if I do a real legato between fingers, the shaping of the tone happens much easier because you're gauging based on the previous finger, the pressure. Whereas if you've lifted your finger and then you're trying to make the next note in that line, you're kind of having to restart from the beginning. You have to kind of re-attack. And that's much harder to control than if you have been doing finger legato. So, and sometimes it requires a very like crabby, like your fingers are walking over each other,
Right.
But I find that it's much easier to control my phrasing that way. So legato is something that I'm always thinking about. Yeah, just that and I think the big stuff, I was like, if I was a solo pianist, not that I don't play solo music, but
Right.
I probably would have done like Schubert, Mozart, Beethoven. I'm not
Hmm.
Tchaikovsky piano concerto kind of, I don't have, that kind of hand.
Hmm.
I also had a really bad fall back in, oh, what year was that? 2000. I don't remember. I think it was 2013, 14, or 15. I was about to have my debut at Wigmore Hall with Nick Pon.
Hmm.
And 1 month before, so we had scheduled up to the debut, we had scheduled 3 recitals on the weekends leading up in the States to
Hmm.
warm up the program. I was jogging across West End Avenue in front of my apartment, and it was dark at night. I wasn't jogging. I mean, I was like trying to quickly cross the avenue, and I didn't see these bumps in the road, and I tripped um, at a high speed, and I just splat,
Oh no.
like forward, and I landed on my right hand. I braced myself here,
Right.
and this, I jammed that into the concrete. It was bad. You know.
Oh, do you break anything or was it?
I went to the orthopedic doctor and they took an x-ray, so the bones weren't broken per se, but I could not, like, I was in so much pain I couldn't play octaves.
Oh,
um, and I could kind of fake chords, if I didn't voice the thumb very much,
right.
you know. But we were doing like an all German lieder program. Like I was playing Hexenlied by Mendelssohn, which is
Wow.
like 200 beats a minute, like ba 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 ba, it was like ba 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 bum, like it ends on these quick, fast, loud chords.
Wow.
So, in this sort of emergency state, I was in hyper focus of my technique and what I was doing. Um, I had to rework everything. Um, the first 2 concerts, I had to leave notes out because I couldn't play the big chords and the octaves, so I was leaving those out. But I was also reworking just any tension that I had, uh, and training my muscle memory, to relax.
Hmm.
By the Wigmore concert, um, I think it might have been the best I've ever played.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was forced to relearn everything and make
Yeah.
sure that there was no tension. The problem is that when you can get away with the tension, then you get away with it.
I
Because
say this all the time. It's like
yeah,
people who are born with gorgeous voices that then when they sing, it's like somebody who's not really in tuned with what you're squeezing a little bit or you're grabbing here or you're doing it's like they can get away with almost anything because it's like it sounds so good even when
right.
it's not technically proficient. It's like
It's so interesting working with singers because there are definitely singers who just cannot get away with, like, their voice tells all.
right,
And although that's a huge pain, I'm always like, it's kind of a blessing, because it forces you to work on your issues. And I think, I mean, some people, it depends. Some people are just miraculously endowed with and can get away with things, but
right.
I always think that eventually it'll catch up to you at some point.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. I mean, I sung, I don't know, 12, 15 years of my career, not even realizing that I was like overblowing with so much air, I wasn't able to really find um, the efficiency that I was able to figure out. Um, well, I mean, when I started working with Stephen King, he, he in our first lesson, I sang, well, maybe you sing something. And so I start singing for him, and he's like, yeah, sounds like you're just kind of blowing air through a mesh screen. And I said, that's what it feels like. And he goes, well, you're not getting any closure in your chords. He goes, I'm kind of surprised you can sing this stuff. I was like,
It lasted this long.
I know, right? It's like, but it does catch up. And you know, I mean, I was being told by, you know, a few different people who, you know, that's the other problem is that like you get to a certain level and everyone, oh, so great, so great. Somebody was like, it doesn't sound like you have enough core in your tone. You need to think about that, you
Right,
know?
right.
And so it was initially Kevin Murphy
Mm-hmm.
who really helped me out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started working with King, it was just like, oh, but you're right. It's like when you stop and rework things technically, I've never sung better. You know, I mean, I've been, you know, that was what, 12 years ago by now. But I mean, it's interesting how that re-examination, and I think as artists, we have to constantly
Right.
be striving to get better and better and better and never just sort of get to some tier where you feel like, oh, okay, I can just fly. It's always surprising to me that my students, you still have voice lessons? Like, yeah, of course I do.
See, that is something I envy, you know, for singers is that you can still get voice lessons, and it's not like pianists can't, but it's just not as common, you know.
Hmm,
Um,
I didn't realize that.
yeah, you kind of at a certain point you're sort of expected to be on your own, you know. And I know that you can ask for lessons, of course. But even as a collaborative pianist, I don't know. I think the smart people ask, you know, for lessons.
Sure,
You know,
sure. I mean,
just
you know, it's always good to have another pair of ears
an
and
objective
eyes.
perspective.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about when you work with singers, how do you manage helping them through these technical challenges that they face?
Hmm.
I mean, because you know, there's a difference between a coach and a voice teacher, but yet I know I just mentioned, I mean, Kevin Murphy, you know, pianists have sometimes helped me figure things out equally as beneficial to a voice teacher. You know, it's just
Right.
in a different way. So how have you approached that?
Well, you know, it's interesting because our job as coaches,
Uh-oh. Wait, sorry, I missed it. What did you say?
our job as coaches requires so much intuition, I think. You know, are we okay?
Uh-oh, I heard our job as coaches require.
So much intuition. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. So,
Okay, I don't know what's going on. My friend Angie says everything is coming through smoothly on this end. Okay, good. Well,
okay. Yeah, I hear you
well,
fine too. So, um,
okay.
but I was
Sorry. So
thinking
your
about
job as coaches require
intuition. So much,
intuition. Okay.
you know, about the person, you know, even because every time someone walks into your room, you know, they are coming from a different set of issues, set of mindset, you know, a different mindset. Um, and so when they start singing, there's just something about recognizing what's going on. And my goal as a coach is always to try to address where they are. And I find that it's different with, you know, every singer. I mean, what I've been finding this semester with a lot of singers is that sometimes we prescribe what our weaknesses are. We say, oh, I'm not good in the passaggio, you know, or I'm not good with high notes. And you come up with a quick fix, you know, and so some singers will, like, you know, when they approach the passaggio, they will, um, you know, close the vowel, you know, and but it's almost like They're just relying on that band-aid,
Hmm.
you know, because in their mind they've said, I'm not good at this and this is how I fix that, and they just stick it on there,
Right.
you know, and my job as a coach is sometimes to uncover that a little bit, because, you know, I want to separate their mindset from this thought of I'm not good at this, to let's just look at what the music is asking here,
Right.
you know. And you know, let's say it's an ah vowel, right? It's like, can I hear a little bit more of the ah vowel? See, I love vowels because vowels are coaches like code for working on technique without saying that you're working on technique.
Right.
You can always use the vowels, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'll say, you know, you're really, you know, the word is changing here. Can I hear, you know, a little bit more of just an ah, you know?
Hmm.
Forget about, you know, what you've said, you know, about that you're not good in this section. And
Right.
I'll give it a try and I'll say, let's just go for what for this phrase, you know, what it requires. Let's try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll do it and it'll sound amazing. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, so I was overdoing it there.
Hmm.
And it's just these little crutches that we sometimes, where we overcompensate because we think that we're not good, you know, at this one technical area.
Well, and depending on who the voice teacher of that particular person might be, I mean, it's there's so many dynamics, you know. So often teachers either teach with band-aids, you know, it's like sometimes you don't find someone who is really approaching it holistically, but instead it's like, here's a prescription for that, here's a prescription for that, you know, and it's like,
It's not good. No,
that's not good. That's
no.
not good.
You know, you have to stay thinking and responding, you know, and engaging to what's happening, because technique is just so much more complicated than these band-aid approaches, you know.
Truth.
And yeah, I find that so much of my coaching has to do with that kind of undoing. You know, whether it's a singer coming in, having listened to a recording and saying, you know, I want to float this note like, you know, whoever.
Singer X, right.
Exactly. And I can't, I mean, that's like every other day, you know, in school.
Yeah.
And you say, you know, okay, first of all, I'm not interested in their voice. I want to hear your authentic voice,
Right.
right? And I want to hear the piano that you do with your voice. First of all, it's a character. Okay, we're not talking decibel levels. There's no definition of piano in decibel levels, okay?
Exactly.
The dynamics are character direction. You know, it's direction for feeling, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, you know, I want to hear in your voice, you know, what is that feeling in your voice? And if your goal is to be able to sing softer, you will never learn to how to do it until you actually do it with your own voice. Because
Right.
otherwise, you're most likely not singing on your voice, you know?
And of course, one of the other frustrations from my side of the, you know, piano when I'm teaching is with younger students, undergraduate students, who the majority of their experience has been singing in choir,
Mm.
trying to get them to understand that as a soloist, your thought of what pianissimo is like exactly what you just said. You know, it's like, no, 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 no. When you are in a section of 12 other women or whatever, you know, it's like, sure, you can get away with a pianissimo as being like, you know,
Right.
like, oh, sorry, what? Sorry, what? But
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it is not about decibel levels. It's about being able to communicate and, you know, a piano on one word might be a different decibel level than a piano on a different word, depending on what it is that you're saying, you know?
Right. And you're never going to actually improve until you face what you actually are doing, you know? And I think that's one of the
I
hardest
feel like
things.
you might have said something really smart, but I can't hear
Oh,
you.
I said, I said you can't really improve anything you're doing until you face what you're actually doing, you know.
Exactly.
Right. And
Couldn't
but that's
agree
the
more.
hardest part is looking in a mirror to look at yourself for how you actually look. And I think that can undo so many of us because we're so afraid of seeing our weaknesses and staring at these things that we think are not good enough, you know.
Right.
But if somehow we can accept who we are, what we are, you know, and not attach a value to it, then you can just start working on it, you know, and improve that area. But of course, like, life is tough, and we hurt each other, you know. Teachers can hurt students unknowingly and unintentionally, you know, by saying certain things, and sometimes those things get lodged in our minds, and we carry that, and it starts to inform, you know, how we approach certain technical things. So that's why it's good also, I think, to work with different people. um, Personally, I don't, on paper, I don't love the idea of a singer working with the same voice teacher for 20 years.
Yeah, I
Because
agree with that.
I think that after a certain point, you've learned everything that that teacher has to offer
Right.
you. And it's our job as students to take what the teacher is giving us and to be able to apply it ourselves rather than needing to go to the teacher to fix it for us, you know?
Right.
Um,
Well, I always tell my students, if I'm doing my job right, you don't need to come back and see me, right? It's like my purpose is not to need you to come back. It's like, I mean, one of my previous teachers, Stephen Smith, so brilliantly said, the goal of vocal study is to be able to solve your own vocal dilemmas,
right.
right? It's like learning how to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with checkups, right?
Of
And
course, of course.
like we need that. Um, but I like the idea of you move on, you know, to be exposed to different approaches, different ideas. So I think for all instruments, you know, not just singers.
Right. You just said like so many sentences back to back that were like amazing pearls of wisdom. I don't even know. I don't even know what else we could. You just said it was such a. It was just beautiful, and
Oh,
I appreciate it so much. But yeah, I certainly am very jealous of these singers that have gotten the opportunity to work with you, and I feel like we need to do a project soon. I think
please.
that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You are such a gorgeous singer, Weston. Oh my gosh.
Oh, you're very sweet.
Oh,
You make me blush.
oh no. And I love baritones.
Well, we can find something to do together for sure.
I haven't
Well,
had a baritone.
thank you so much for being here and sharing your experiences with us and the world. And I am so excited for you and your future. And I sincerely hope that we get to see each other sooner than later,
Me too.
and that would, I don't know, manifest itself some way in a project that would be really great to do.
Thanks, Weston. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
All right. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.